Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show, and welcome back to Regan and Tom, who join me on our midweek This Week in Politics panel. Let's talk about the changes that were required after the longest ballot initiative. And now people have to, for those people who will be voting in the by-election that could see Pierre Poilievre finally readmitted into the House of Commons. I mean, this is tricky. It's a very simple ballot. It's essentially a white piece of paper that says, I voted for, and then there's a line, and you have to put the person's name in. But the problem is, if you misspell the person's name, that could be considered a spoiled ballot. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of smart people. Most of those smart people don't know how to spell Poilievre. So Regan, what happens here?
I don't know. I mean, my faith actually in the elections process in this country is pretty high.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of fraud, really, relative to a country our size. And we do, I am one of these people who prefers an old-fashioned paper ballot and pencil. I think it's pretty hard to screw up an election in those circumstances. I would hope that the chief returning officer, who will be running the by-election in the riding of Crowfoot, on behalf of Elections Canada, will instruct his or her team on the ground to make reasonable conclusions. If somebody writes the name Pierre and misspells his last name, I think it's reasonable to assume the intent of that ballot. It's okay if people misspell a name. I think that's a reasonable expectation, given the last name and the type of ballot we are now facing because of the longest ballot initiative.
Yeah, Tom, I think everything that Regan said is reasonable, but I think it's understandable if somebody wants to take a hardline approach. Unless you get the name right, then that doesn't necessarily mean that you wanted to vote for that person.
Well, the political parties sit in there to scrutinize the ballots after they're cast, and they will, fight it out. But the line, the interpretation from the chief election officer has already been set, which is as long as the voter has made their intention clear, a spelling of somebody's name is not going to factor. And that's, if you've ever been involved in a political party or a union or wherever where you vote, and it's like, here's a piece of paper, write down the person you're voting for, right? This is normal, right? Yeah. You write down Mulroney, you spell it wrong, but everybody knows that it's Mulroney that you're voting for, because it starts with an M and has the name Ben in front of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a very reasonable approach, and in reaction to the long ballot committee effort, which I think is, I know what they're trying to do, but I really think they're going about it the wrong way.
Oh yeah,
being annoying.
No, absolutely.
They're being
Ben,
annoying.
did I just hear that Tom volunteered to be the campaign manager for the Ben Mulroney for Mayor campaign?
Oh my God. Okay, that's not happening.
I mean, it went.
No, that's not happening at all. Hey, let's shift our focus to policing in Washington, D.C. Day one of the federalization of the D.C. cops by Donald Trump's administration is in the books. He now controls Washington. But on one hand, you'll have people saying this is massive overreach. This is Donald Trump behaving like a king. And on the other side, you've got people saying there are a lot of people in Canada wishing that there were politicians in power, not politicians generally, but politicians who actually control the levers of power, who would say some of the things that some of the people in his administration are saying, that it's time that that criminals were held to account. It's time that the rights of everyday law-abiding citizens were placed above the criminals. And so I wonder, Tom, how you feel about this new, it's temporary, it's a 30-day thing in Washington, but I wonder how you feel about it.
I'm kind of heartened by the idea that it's temporary. I have, as many of us do, I have extreme trepidation about Mr. Trump and where he's trying to take politics in the United States, and by virtue of that, dragging our country into the mess that he creates. Having said that, Washington, D.C. has the highest murder rate in the United States, and it's not even close. I think Louisiana might be second, and it's well below. So there is a reason that connects about why people in Washington, D.C. Need to be better served by policing, but it's any crime is not simply a policing. Police tend to respond to crime, not so much prevent it. And so we got to look at both sides
Yeah.
of this. So anyway, I'm not worried about it. It is temporary. If it continues after 30 days, if he's not showing that he's trying to get the police to do something different than they've done in the past, and if he's not also, addressing the causes of crime as well as punishing crime, then I think maybe those kind of evil ideas about what Mr. Trump is up to, maybe they would be true.
Regan, I think there are a lot of people in Canada, like I said, who wish that we had politicians who would say some of the things that we heard over the past couple of days from the Trump administration. Not necessarily the right messenger, but the right message. And the federal Liberals were very good at getting elected based on showcasing the best parts of themselves and also downplaying parts of themselves that were problematic. And one of the problematic things was their record on law and order. They didn't talk about it during the last election campaign because they knew they couldn't run a campaign on it, and they did so successfully. But it really would be nice if from this federal government we heard some of the things that we hear from Donald Trump's administration.
Sure. I think Tom raises some interesting points for anybody. And the most important, by the way, is that it is a 30-day project, and let's see how it goes. And I'll remind listeners that he was duly elected by the people of the United States with an overwhelming majority and the number of popular votes in the Electoral College. So he's the president. He gets to make these decisions, and he's doing so lawfully. But what I would say, though, in this country in particular, is particularly those on the left who have Trump derangement syndrome and full-on Trump derangement syndrome. What he's doing, i.e. using the powers and tools that are reposed in him as president, is no different on a temporary basis than what the Trudeau government did during the Ottawa convoy when they temporarily invoked the Emergencies Act in order to deal with a law and order issue there. Whatever you think of the use of the Emergencies Act, and I happen to believe that was an outrageous overreach of power, it's the same thing. And so people get elected. They're accountable to their electors and to the voters. Tom is absolutely right that Washington, D.C. has a crime problem. I was there a couple of summers ago with my family. I love Washington. Yeah. It's a beautiful city. I know, Ben, you've been there. I suspect, Tom, you have as well.
Oh, I go once a year.
Gorgeous. And it is, Ronald Reagan, the great Ronald Reagan, one of your dad's closest friends, was absolutely right when he called it the shining city on the hill, or referred to Washington, D.C. and the country of America as the shining city on the hill. And it has its problems, and it can be a bit of a dump in places. So cleaning up crime is never a bad idea as far as I'm concerned. I think Tom's right on both enforcement and deterrence. But if this helps clean up some of the mess that is in D.C., then I think Trump will be lauded. If it doesn't clean up a mess, or if things get worse, or if he extends it to an unreasonable amount of time frame, then we can revisit the discussion at that point.
Yeah, let's stick with this because we don't have time to open up another conversation. I just keep bringing this back, Tom, to people in this country where there's the federal Conservative Party is putting forth a bill that wants to stop leniency in criminal procedures in front of courts for people with different immigration statuses. We want consistency in this country, regardless of who it is. We want to know that the rules apply to everyone the exact same way. And it feels like in big cities in Canada, just as in the United States, we're living in a place where if you are a criminal, you're going to be treated differently than if you are somebody who's just trying to get by and live your life. Now, that may not be accurate 100%, but that's how it feels. And it looks, I wish, like I said, I wish some of that moral clarity that we're getting from the American administration, whether you agree with them or not, I wish some of it would get applied here. I think there's a little too much nuance in Canada.
I think, a fundamental difference between the United States and Canada, you look at the American Bill of Rights, it applies to citizens. And you look at the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it applies to all people in Canada. You could be on a plane transferring from Europe to Japan, touching down in Vancouver, and you're protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which means that if you're arrested, for example, you are entitled to due process. That doesn't apply in the United States, and that is exactly why they're going down the drain in the bad way that they have. So I have a big problem with this proposed Conservative bill, because what it is saying is to take away that idea that is in our charter.
We got to run. Sorry, I wish we had more time, Tom. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much. Hey, more to come on the Ben Mulroney Show. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of the Ben Mulroney Show.